Welcome back to the competition studio at the Paderewski International Piano Competition in Bydgoszcz. I'm Jared Dunn, your host, and you've just been hearing Ji Young Kim playing Schumann Humoresque. That was from this morning's session of the second stage. I'm delighted to welcome to the studio today a dear friend whom I met for the first time at the Paderewski competition, Professor Vanessa Latarche, from the head of keyboard at the Royal College of Music in London. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to see you again. You're one of the most sought after and in-demand judges and consultants in the piano world today, so I'm very eager to hear your thoughts on some topics related to competitions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
And you've been at the Paderewski before. That's where we met last edition. I'm curious your thoughts and recollections of the competition, the particular flavor of this competition, and what it offers pianists.
Yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, it's just such a joy to be back talking with you, Jared. And I remember very fondly our previous conversations that we had when I was there. In fact, I think I was elected as vice chair.
You were vice chair.
Yeah, when I was in Bydgoszcz, which was a very, very big honor for me. And of course, we had a fantastic jury, and I know you've got a wonderful jury this time around too. My thoughts on this particular competition, well, it's a big one, isn't it? It's a very big lot of repertoire. Mm-hmm. And the candidates have to be really well prepared in many, many areas. And I suppose what I do remember was the fact that you have to play some Paderewski, which is very unusual, and obviously that means that you have to, as a young person, you have to research the repertoire a little bit, find out what might suit you. It's very unusual to play this repertoire, certainly if you're outside of Poland. I guess if you're
True.
Inside, it's a different matter. So to search that repertoire, and then I think there's a commission piece as well that you have to, and a Mozart concerto, and then a romantic concerto, and a lot of other solo repertoire. So this is a big challenge. You have to be very broad, I think, for this competition, and you have to actually have capacity to hold a lot of repertoire in your head, because of the very quick changes of stages and from one to the other. So yeah, it's a big, very demanding competition. I think it's also very high level, and of course it's following on the back of the great Chopin competition, and this must be fantastic for Poland, because all the Polish people, as I remember well, are just so in love with Chopin and with their big national pride there, and for this also for Paderewski too, it's great to have this follow on from the big competition, which this is another very important one too.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I just think it's great that this happens at this time, because it keeps the momentum also of music in Poland, which of course is very rich when it comes to its support of music.
Did you enjoy, when you were here, hearing all the different Paderewski pieces that we don't very often hear in concerts?
Certainly I did, and I knew a few of them from my past as playing. The Nocturne of Paderewski, that beautiful little piece, is one of my favorites, and I used to play that a lot as an encore. It was fantastic to hear some really unusual repertoire. Certainly I learnt a lot, as you always do when you come to these competitions. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, since we're almost at the end of the second stage. So as of tomorrow, we'll hear the results of the second stage and who will go to the semifinals. You judge a lot of competitions, and you hear a lot of this sort of kind of environment and this kind of playing. After they've played the first stage and now they're on to the second stage, what do you value more in terms of what catches you and you want to vote for it to proceed into the semifinals of a competition? More the consistency and accuracy piece of playing, or spontaneity and something new?
I think it's a combination of both, Jared. I think I always say to my own students, you have to be prepared to get better as you go through the competition. So some people actually do a fantastic first round and then drop down in terms of consistency and in terms of their own personal voice, because the consistency means that they can't express themselves properly if they're inconsistent. So I think what they need to do is to grow through and get stronger, because a lot of people won't be getting stronger. They'll be finding it more difficult, they get more tired. That's normal all in, you know, you're all a long way from home. It's cold there, I think. And you know, if you come from Asia at the moment, it's not that cold. So you know, you've come to a cold place. It's you get tired. The food's different. You know, you've got to really pace yourself in terms of your health and well-being as well as you're playing. So that all that contributes to how you perform as you go through. So my answer to your question is yes, you have to be consistent all the way through, of course, but you have to be increasingly more interesting as well as you go through and more spontaneous. So you need a combination of both of them and strength of concentration.
That's a fantastic answer. And I want to follow it up by asking, because I've been asking several authorities on this issue. Jim and Agnes, and we had yesterday, mentioned that it's really important to present your own artistic voice, to really find that and present it. How, as a professor who hears so many auditions and recitals and examinations every year, how do you keep your ears and mind constantly open to new interpretations?
Well, you know, listening to a lot of it's a very good question. When you listen to a lot of video auditions, especially like for when I'm pre-screening for competitions and things like that, you listen to a video and you think, okay, that's very good. That's very good. And then something all of a sudden jumps out at you and you think, yes, that person, that's what I was waiting for. It's a sort of indefinable quality. It's actually quite difficult to put that into words to say what it is, but it's something. It's the it factor. It's whatever you like. It's something that they have and that they have something that's made very interesting. Now, I might not always agree with that. It might not be something that I think, this is rather unusual. But you don't have to agree with everybody to understand them and also to find them really interesting. I'd much rather that somebody has their own ideas and their own artistic interpretation, and of course within the boundaries of being, you know, respectful to the composer, of course.
If it's Schumann, it sounds like Schumann. If it's Beethoven, it sounds like Beethoven.
Of course. But on top of that, you're looking for something that makes it jump out at you. Now that goes for live, obviously, live auditions even more, or live rounds even more, because you know, you can be listening to a lot, and then you kind of going along thinking, yeah, this is really good, and then the next one, and you think, aha, this is something special. And it's just the way they communicate, the way that they draw you in. It's not always about how loud and fast you play.
Very rarely. In fact, I was going to say, as you were talking, you made me think about the really important skill that a competition can help someone develop, which is adapting to a different hall and playing incredibly challenging music on it, in terms of voicing, in terms of pedaling. Are there certain skills that immediately jump out at you as being pianistically attractive?
Yeah, somebody who listens to themselves. You find that a lot of them think it's all about this, and it's all about, you know, what's happening with the music, the flow. But actually, if they're not listening, then they're not creating. So that's the person that jumps out to me, is somebody who's really listening to themselves and also making you listen to them.
Speaking of this, I mean, listening immediately, you can tell when someone's truly listening to themselves. The sound is more communicative. The feeling of the phrasing is so much more spontaneous. Now, you're really busy as the head of keyboard at the Royal College, and you travel a lot, and you've done a lot of competitions. What do they give you? What kind of inspiration or artistic fulfillment is there in something that you've done so many times?
Well, it's interesting because you do hear a lot of similar playing. People that have been sitting in a practice room and just practicing and never really practicing performing, but practicing, but not actually doing it very much. So hear a lot of what you feel is good practice. And I mean that in the sense of good piano practice in the studio. I think what I find really inspiring from when you do listen a lot after hearing a lot of that, and then you hear someone who really is artistic and who has something very special to say, and that's you're looking for it, waiting for it, listening for it, waiting, and when you get it, it's the most. Oh, you think this is fantastic. It's so exciting to hear young people who have so much talent, but who are also able to find their own artistic voice quite young. I mean, that's something that does develop with time. Um, not everybody has it at 16. Some people do, but most people, come early 20s, they start to find themselves a little bit more. That's a big generalization, but that's what I'm listening for, and that's what excites me. It's so exciting to hear that in young people. And you think that you've undiscovered or you've discovered the next real huge talent. It's fantastic.
That is a really good reason to attend competitions, actually. And I think that's nice for people to hear, that judges who are so used to hearing high-level playing and what you say, really just good piano practicing, are actually on the hunt for something that touches their heart and really speaks to them.
Yeah, we are absolutely, and I think people sometimes get it wrong when they think juries are there to sort of take everybody down and knock them down and think what they're finding criticism and finding what's wrong with it. We're not looking for what's wrong with it, with the performance. We're looking for what's right with it, and also what speaks to us individually. Now, not everybody's going to agree on a jury either. That often happens. That's something that you have to, if you're taking part in a competition, you have to be aware of that. Some people are going to love you, some people aren't going to like you particularly, and the more individual you are, that is the case.
True.
Because you get reactions in both directions. So.
I'm curious, actually, just as a sidebar to this, you are known as really an important piano teacher in the UK and all over the world, but you also performed and you competed as well. What repertoire did you gravitate toward?
Well, I was doing competitions in my 20s, and I remember having to prepare everything, because obviously then there were the big competitions, Tchaikovsky, and I didn't ever do the Chopin competition, although I love Chopin myself. Just didn't fall into because it being such a long distance before you do one from another, it didn't fall into the time that I was prepared correctly for these things. So what repertoire? Well, I play everything. I mean, at that time you did. Obviously now it's more focused on Bach and also on romantic music. So I go both of those areas. And Mozart as well to a certain extent. But yeah, in those days I had to play everything from Rachmaninoff.
Wow.
We didn't actually have, in those days, we didn't have to prepare so much contemporary music. It's true. And there was not the same demand for a commission piece. So I don't remember ever doing a commission piece for it. Oh yeah, maybe I did once in Sydney. That's right.
Oh, you went to Sydney?
Yeah, and there was something there that we had to prepare. We had a choice of 3.
Now, we have today things like this competition studio and social media and all sorts of exposure for the competitors right from the beginning. What did it look like competing when you were competing?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was nothing. If it was recorded, you were lucky.
Wow.
It was really, there was nothing online, nothing. Nobody sitting there on their phones, of course. No such thing. So people were listening. Of course, the audiences were big because of that. It meant that a lot of people would come in person and would travel a long way. In countries that you went to, they'd come a long distance because they kind of camp out for the week. So it was different, a different environment. Yeah, but essentially the music making was the same. I mean, the judging was the same. So. Nothing much changes from that aspect. We also had the choice of pianos and things like that they have these days too. Although the choice was more limited, I guess. Now we have more companies that provide pianos for competitions.
Yeah, we have 4 here that they can choose from. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm curious, did you enjoy performing in competitions? Was there some draw to it, or was it just a matter of course for you?
It's kind of rite of passage, isn't it, for most people? I guess I'm quite a competitive person, so I think playing in competitions was very important for me as to try. Whether I was always the most well prepared, I'm not sure. I'm kind of the sort of person that even in those days I was very interested in teaching. So I was
Really?
kind of, pulled away from in various directions.
But I think it deserves to be said, because for teachers of your distinction and of your level, people often forget that you do play, and that it's impossible to teach to the level you can teach without feeling and doing that level of playing.
Of course, yeah. And of course, because it's so long ago, those competitions weren't online so there's no record of that. So
Yes.
people don't see what you've done in the same way as they would do these days. They just click on YouTube and find out how you played in, whenever it was. So
So in a way,
yeah,
you can outrun your past if there's stuff that you'd rather people not hear if it wasn't recorded.
it's great.
I'm curious because I want to pick up on a topic that Jim and Agneson dropped yesterday as well, that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. From hearing so many pianists all over the world who are well trained as pianists, high level technically, they play perfect text. Jim mentioned that there's still basically the same degree of rarity of the true artists, the really individual special artists. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. And that's what I was really talking about when I was talking about, practicing in your practice room. Because it's getting more and more and more polished. You very, very rarely hear wrong notes in
Right.
competitions. In my days, people were having memory slips and going around in circles and, doing that. It was a very different sort of aspect, I suppose, an attitude to competitions in those days. And you never ever hear that now. You hear it, note perfect. Now, that's great if you want to put it straight on CD, if you've got something to say, but it's extremely dull and boring if it's only that. So, you've got to be polished, yes, polished really well, but you've also got to then be able to let yourself go and be spontaneous, as you said earlier, but also be able to speak in your own way and be a bit daring as well.
Okay, so as a teacher myself, I can't resist asking this as a follow-up. When you have a student who plays this way, it's note perfect, text is right on point, but it doesn't move you at all, and you know they're going to go to a competition with this. How do you coax that out of them? What are your go-to phrases or go-to ways to help someone who's achieved something at that high level, but really does need to take the next step?
I think a lot of it happens in your teaching, and you probably agree with this, Jared, that when you're hearing that, I'm a big believer in singing with your student and being able to show and demonstrate what you feel and like the passion that you feel in the music with your student. Now, of course, that's not going to necessarily always be something that they can digest. But if you help them feel it that way, by singing and maybe conducting and being very physical in terms of the activity and energetic in your teaching, then usually that is taken on board by the student, and they can then have that ability to find that energy for themselves. If if I sit there and just listen to them and I'm not active in the lessons, there's not quite so much emotional engagement from them. And maybe, it depends on who it is. Sometimes it's too much. They've got too much temperament, and then you're on then you're in the reverse.
Right.
So you're trying to say, right, okay, let's keep this a little bit more centered and calm. But in general, if you're trying to pull something out of them, that's the way I would do it, and also would try to then say, right, now your turn. You do this. See, it's not a question of copying in any way. Obviously, demonstration helps, but that's not everything. It's got to come from inside them. So helping them feel it, I think, is the way I would suggest.
Given the location of where you teach, how
Yeah.
important is it that students take advantage of that and go to concerts?
In London, I think, it's one of the biggest cultural centres of the world, if not the, apart from New York. And I guess we really encourage them. I encourage my own students to just take advantage of everything that's on offer, because we have everybody visiting, and you can hear anyone. You can hear masses of concerts in one night. But also, I think there's also the opportunities there that they can play themselves, and this is as important as going to a concert themselves, but doing both. Yeah.
Now, that was something I wanted to ask you as well. I got some questions about this before our interview. So, given your experience as a juror, there must be some things that really put you off, that immediately you just go, nope, I don't like this kind of playing or this kind of performance. Is there anything that you just simply can't abide in a competition setting or in playing in general?
Mechanical playing is something that really turns me off because I just sounds like a metronome. I can't be doing with that. And sometimes if the playing, and this is really where it's very difficult to judge, because sometimes when the performance is too much about the performer and not enough about the music that they're playing, so it's too self-indulgent, that's another thing that can at times put you off as a juror, but it doesn't stop you listening because you're still interested. But it can be a bit off-putting if it's too much, too exaggerated. So it's finding that fine line, isn't it, for the candidates, for them to tread, to be themselves, not to overly exaggerate, not to sound like a machine. Yeah.
And do you like it when you perceive that they've really thought carefully about their program choices and the program makes logical sense to you?
Yes, I think that's very important, actually. In many competitions, I've said that in the Hastings competition where I'm an artistic director, and we say in their program, particularly for the solo round, is that we take the program, the building of the program as into consideration as well. I mean, obviously that's not the main issue, but we do look at that. If they're just going to come and play something very standard without, or the way that they may juxtapose works, that's very interesting sometimes. So we're looking at creativity in that way.
Because it must get rather tiring after some months of traveling or many times of listening to competitions, and you hear standard examination representative programs rather than something that you could perceive this would work at a concert.
Yeah, well, things go in trends, don't they? I mean, there are some years that you get hundreds and hundreds of Schumann fantasies and hundreds of Scriabin Second Sonata. It goes like that in waves, and then another time it'll be something else, and there'll be something that pops up in a lot of competitions where, for instance, this year, I guess everyone is playing a lot of Chopin, partly because they've either been trying for the Chopin competition in the early stages and still have a lot of that in their repertoire. So you're finding in a lot of the audition videos for various things, like for school, for coming into the Royal College of Music, and also for our competition, that there's a lot of Chopin represented because they've been working a lot on it. So yeah, things go in trends.
So for the Hastings competition, let's turn to that because you are the artistic director. At the very beginning of Paderewski, I spoke with the artistic director of the competition here, or the general director. But from the artistic side, what goes into planning a competition?
Oh my gosh, it's
Big question.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like a great big machine that needs, you need a lot of help from a good team. We've a wonderful team at Hastings, but you've got the marketing communications team, you've got the development team where there's all the fundraising going on to try make yourself survive. You've got the sort of operational team who do all the logistics, and in our particular competition, we welcome people to Hastings and we put them all up with host families. So there's a lot of volunteers that need corralling, and obviously there's a huge volunteer manager who manages to do all that. Then there's sort of the piano practice that needs to be organized, and pianos that need to be found. We have certain pianos in various parts of the theatre, in the White Rock Theatre in Hastings, as well as obviously people in their houses, and we have volunteers that drive people around to those houses. So it's this enormous machine that moves.
So then when all the competitors arrive, are you the one that they're reporting to, or do you basically manage the jury and the process?
I manage the jury, and I manage the sort of logistical side of it from that side of things. No, we've got a team that takes, obviously I welcome them when we have a welcome drinks, and yeah, I certainly speak to them at the very beginning as well. they know who I am and what we're looking for, and hoping we're kind of very friendly competition where we like to be, and to
Yeah.
try and make it feel like a family. And often some of our candidates that have stayed with host families are in touch with them for the rest of their lives, and go down to stay with them. Or this was great. It's a great
That's
feeling.
wonderful. It forms connections.
Yeah, a lot of connections and community. And then we put a lot of our winners out to the community to play in various care homes or the schools and various things like that. We do artistic projects where not necessarily the winners, but people who've been taking part in the competition and want to be involved go and play for some artwork. We had one of our former competitors who did that, and she played while a whole art studio decided they were going to paint and listening to her. We do all sorts of things like that. So it's that's another side of the competition that is like the follow up and happens on the off year because we're biennial. So yeah, it's a very big operation, of which I head up, but I don't have to do all the operational details, thankfully.
As much as it sounds like a ton of work, you sound like you get a lot of satisfaction from it.
Yeah, I do, and I love to hear and see young people develop, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Watching them and hearing them play.
When I first came across the Hastings competition as a student, it appeared to be mostly focused on piano concertos. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is mainly. That's our USP, in that they get a chance to play concerto with the South Bank Sinfonia, which is or now it's called Sinfonia. No, this now it's changed to for this semi-final was Sinfonia St John Smith Square. So that's the semi-final orchestra, and then the final orchestra, the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So it's a big professional orchestra for them to play with. It's a big deal. And so yes, we focus on the concertos in the first round. They play with second piano. Then the second round, they play a solo program, which incorporates a commission piece. This year, we've got Stephen Huff, who's our patron,
Fantastic.
who's written us a piece for the candidates, which is great. And then they go through to the next round and play their classical concerto with the Smith Square Orchestra, and then the RPO is the final one. So it's a big concerto base, and that's, I suppose, always been that way. It started, actually, it developed from the Hastings Festival, which was like a local competitive festival about 40 years ago, when they had a competition class. And then it grew out of that, and then it became gradually larger and larger, and then a big input of funds and support, and we went independent, and now it's Hastings International Piano.
That's fantastic. It's grown so much. I'm curious when it comes to the differences between playing solo and playing concerti. When you can tell someone's really well prepared to play a concerto, what are the signs?
They are a leader in their playing, so they're able to front up, a big orchestra. They're able to show the way rather than to be not as, I suppose, not as what's the word? They're not retiring, shy and retiring. They're very much up to projecting their own personality. Of course, they've got to be able to play, like as with chamber music, they've got to be able to collaborate well. And that you hear in the first round, of course, with the second pianist, you can hear that if they're able to collaborate. You've got to be a big player to be able to be heard over an orchestra in a romantic concerto, particularly. And so the projection is very, very important. And but also we want to hear them in solo repertoire too, so that we're looking out for those key aspects as well, I think, in the playing.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, I think it's also important for students to get to have contact with competitions that really do focus on their concerto playing, because if they are successful at this competition or any other one, they're going to be asked to play concertos really often for the first few years.
They are, if they're lucky, they are. Yeah, and also if in this country there are an enormous amount of amateur and semi-professional orchestras, which a lot of our pianists can play with these days. Of course, going in and playing it with the RPO, for instance, one of the most famous orchestras in the world. We've got Martin Brabbins conducting, by the way.
wow.
This is fantastic, and he's also conducting the semi-finals, so he'll get to know them very well. But this orchestra, and having a conductor like that, is quite a different ball game from playing with an amateur orchestra or a semi-pro orchestra who maybe they don't know the repertoire quite so well, perhaps. And it's more of a compromise, isn't it, when you're playing with those orchestras, because you can't always do what you really want to do as a
That's
pianist,
true.
because you're kind of try to play along with them and
As you said, to be a leader, it's a skill you
yeah.
learn not only
Yeah,
from great orchestras.
that's true, but you learn it. I think you also learn more about collaboration with the semi-pros and the amateur orchestras, because the RPO, you can lead, they'll follow. I mean, they're just so
Yeah.
expert. That's not always the case with other orchestras. So I think that you learn that, if you can learn that in your early stages of your professional career with these orchestras, that really sets you up well. So when playing with a professional orchestra should in effect be easier.
Yes, ideally. And it's important that students, when they're young, develop a large concerto repertoire, I think.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Because as time goes on and as you get a bit older, you don't have that much time to learn notes. So you can learn your notes early, particularly the big ones, rack threes, and if that's what you want to play.
Yeah.
If you can learn those notes early on, then it's much easier than to recall them than to learn them when you're 40.
Speaking of that, and I'd like to wrap up with this point because it's kind of about the trajectory of competitions and where they're taking people in the end. So you have a lot of students who've gone to competitions and who have succeeded in competitions. Do you keep up with them as their career develops after they're finished school as well?
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, they're very much in touch with me, and I try and continue to mentor, and very occasionally they come and play through to me, or we discuss a recording that they've made, or I'm very I try to mentor them as much as I can. I mean, obviously the school is huge, and we have a great massive faculty, and I obviously have a lot of pianists I have to look after as well as organists, but it's very important to me, those that are really have that are wanting a solo career particularly, but also other work that they're doing, but particularly in the solo area, that they have someone they feel they can always come back to and ask of honest advice.
And what sorts of things do you tell your students who are preparing for the reality of a solo career? I mean, my teacher basically told me, if you win, the day after is the start of the real competition to sustain this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, nothing really happens till the day after. I mean, I remember when Alim Bayzimbayev, who was my student who won Leeds, and the next day he was thrown into doing all sorts of things, including playing at very short notice for Radio 3 BBC broadcasts, and very short notice for playing in a proms. He had to play back at 2 days' notice and things like that. So I think it comes, if you're not prepared in terms of the amount of repertoire that you have in your fingers, then it can be too much for you. So really, when you enter a competition, you have to have behind you a big library of music that you can call on, that you have in that. Okay, you won't only just have 2 days to prepare, you'll have weeks in some instances, but you need to have a lot of stuff you can recall quickly. And if you haven't got that repertoire, and you win a competition on pieces that you've been playing forever and ever and ever, that's when you're going to fall down, because you're not going to be able to fulfill what you're doing.
Yeah, because suddenly a whole semester of preparing a jury or recital program becomes 2 weeks, or if you're lucky, maybe 4, and it's totally new music.
Exactly. So it's very important to have that retention, and also to have that, to build that repertoire before you even think about taking part in one of the bigger competitions.
That is fantastic advice, and I hope the teachers who are watching this also take that, because you're such a renowned professional of this great amount of experience, and some of those very simple and yet totally, they're truths that you only learn through the actual experience of having to concertize like this.
Absolutely, there it is the truth. Yeah.
Last question, really the last one, because I realize you're very busy. As you said, you've got hundreds of people to take care of at the Royal College. You're someone who has played the entire Well-Tempered Clavier of Bach. Have you ever taught someone who wants to just play the entire Well-Tempered Clavier?
No, is the answer to that. But I have taught a lot of Bach of people who are doing, taking, wanting to play a lot of Bach. And I was actually the chair of the jury for the Bach Leipzig competition this year. And that was a phenomenal competition and really wonderful to hear so many young people still wanting to explore, push the boundaries with Bach, which was great.
Will we someday hear you again with the whole 48?
Well, maybe one day when I stop doing what I'm doing. Don't intend to do that yet, but maybe.
We hope so. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time. We are so appreciative that you've chosen to spend this time with us, and thank you for your wonderful thoughts.
Thank you very much, Jared, for inviting me.
Great to have you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us at the competition studio. We'll see you again tomorrow after the results of the second stage are announced. Thanks.
The 13th International Paderewski Piano Competition in Bydgoszcz, Poland. November 9th to 23rd. Watch live broadcasts online. More information at paderewskicompetition.pl and on social media.
Bydgoszcz. Jedno miasto, dwie rzeki, tysiące historii.
Energia jutra zaczyna się w umysłach, które sięgają dalej. Energia jutra to bezpieczeństwo, rozwój, niezależność, wielkie inwestycje dla pewnej przyszłości. Orlen to więcej niż przystanek na drodze. To droga. Energia jutra zaczyna się dziś.
Stadiony, baseny, muzea, opery, te i wiele innych obiektów powstało ze środków przekazanych przez Totalizator Sportowy. Od 1994 roku przekazaliśmy na te cele ponad 22 miliardy złotych. Totalizator Sportowy, właściciel marki Lotto.
The 13th International Paderewski Piano Competition in Bydgoszcz, Poland. November 9th to 23rd. Watch live broadcasts online. More information at paderewskicompetition.pl and on social media.
Cukiernia Sowa życzy Wam słodkiego dnia. Codziennie.
13. Międzynarodowy Konkurs Pianistyczny imienia Ignacego Jana Paderewskiego w Bydgoszczy.